Welcome to the podcast, From One Mother of an Addict to Another. This is a space of sharing heartfelt personal experiences, insightful thoughts, and powerful suggestions, which can hopefully assist and offer strength navigating your journey alongside a loved one facing addiction and mental illness.
Hi, welcome to the podcast episode, Why Don't They Want Help? When your addicted child refuses treatment, what happens then? Well, let's start from the beginning. Basically, this one hurts. There's nothing more gut-wrenching than watching your child fall apart right in front of you and hearing them say, I don't need help. I'm fine. You're the one with the problem. Oh, that's the good one. You cry, you beg, you offer them everything. Rehab, therapy, doctors, even just a safe place to talk. And they still say no. It's like you're the enemy. And all you're left with is the question that loops in your head day and night. Why don't they want help? Why can't they get to that place where they see themselves, where they're willing to see themselves? I always say, though, there's that small window. You never know when it's going to come, but it's almost like this window of alertness, awareness, and it doesn't last long, but every so often, if you could find that and be around when that occurs, there might be that one moment that they'll say, yes, I need help. Yes, I don't know what to do. Yes, I'm unhappy. Yes, I can't do this anymore. I need to go somewhere. So basically that could potentially come. But when will they come to that? We don't know. Why don't they want help? Oh, I've been there. And today I'm going to talk honestly about, what do you mean? Why don't they want help? Because they can't see themselves as needing help. You're the one with the problem. I remember him running around saying to people, I'm crazy, telling my ex, I'm crazy. He can't live with me, making all these excuses, anything he could to take the pressure off himself, take anyone thinking that he has the problem and putting it on someone else. The hardest part is watching them refuse help. You're the parent, your child's struggling with this addiction or mental illness, which we already discussed is probably one and the other. Every instinct in your body is wired to protect them. I mean, it's just the way we are. We're wired that way. So when we see them drowning and they refuse to, like a life preserver, it doesn't make sense. It breaks something inside of all of us. I remember the first time my son don't want to talk to anyone. I thought, what do you mean you don't want to help? You're not okay. You haven't been okay in a long time. But here's what I've come to understand and believe. It took a long time. They don't see the problem. Okay, let's discuss that again. They don't see the problem. They don't want help because they don't believe they need help. Their brain is focused on survival. It's wired for whatever substance or behavior gives them relief, not insight or healing. Nothing like that. And if you disagree with them, you'll hear an earful. So you're best to keep the conversations very small. You might be witnessing a full-blown breakdown. But to them, they're just trying to feel normal. You see, self-destruction. They feel like they finally have some control. And that is what the worst part of this is. So when I say there's that little window, like my son used to start really strong, right? And things were going great in school or everything, his behavior was great. He was really accomplishing things for himself. He seemed like he was, happy. And then all of a sudden, it's like they sabotage themselves and it starts going down. You can see the patterns. if you live through it long enough. And I definitely had seen the patterns. Now, some cycles are smaller than others. If you have a longer cycle, that might be better, and you might be able to get through to your kid a little bit more. Maybe there's a possibility there. But when there's such small cycles, there's not a lot of time for breathing space. So they start out strong, but then like within that month, boy, they start going down fast. And when they hit that bottom, it takes them, they got to find a way to get back up again. And mine definitely had a lot of ups and downs, and they were much shorter and closer. And that's something to acknowledge. It's something to look at, review, try to get a feel for what's going on in your house. And your addict, your kid has mental illness, showing all kinds of signs. Just try to see if there's a pattern that's been happening and keep track of it. My friends used to say, why is he sabotaging himself again? Why is he doing that? It's just the way it is. And, basically, they feel like they're in control of their own lives. So that makes them feel good. And it's funny because when you're speaking to them, you're speaking on two different emotional languages. And that disconnect is one of the most painful things to live with as a parent. Because it's like you're thinking one way, they're thinking another. How do you convince someone? You can't. You absolutely can't until they come to their senses. And that won't happen until they're clearly off drugs, alcohol, in a better frame of mind. And they can't get in a better frame of mind until they are completely drug-free. Now, the fear behind the refusal is it's really horrible. It's sad. Sometimes they do some things wrong, but admitting to it, they're terrifying. Saying I need help feels like failure, like weakness, like cracking open a door to all the trauma and pain and shame that they have buried. In their world, it often feels safer to keep using than to face the truth. So basically, they'd rather act like nothing's wrong, and it's easier to them than facing the truth of what's really going on and having to deal with it. They're also, when they do that, you got to realize that they're scared. Scared to let go, scared of things that, makes them painful. Even if it's killing them, they don't care. If it guards them from feeling the emotions or the feeling that they have, they'd rather deny. And then when love isn't enough, which I've definitely spoken about before, but I bring it up again because one of the things I thought was important is that, you can pray, you could scream, you could cry, you could beg, but, you could love someone so much, and it's just, you could try so hard and feel like you've done everything to try in their best interest, and the outcome is just not there. And it's like, you're like, well, how much more can I love them? How much more? And this is where love stops. This is where love is, you don't stop loving them, but you have to realize that, it's not there. It's not going to be enough to help them. And the truth is, it nearly broke me. That was the hardest thing for me, the love. I know he loves me so much, and I know he misses me deep down inside. I think he's just their ability to convince themselves of things is so strong, it overpowers anything, any truth. So they will put in their minds the most horrible things just to distance themselves and not have to admit or come to terms with their illnesses. And that is what, to me, is so, so sad and hard to conceive. Because I thought, love's harder and that lasts and, but nah, it won't make them less angry, and it won't make them more patient, and it definitely won't make them more available. He doesn't want to get better. But until he wants to get better, there's no love in the world that's going to stop them from doing what they're doing to harm themselves. And unfortunately, addiction does not respond to love. It just doesn't. It responds only to the pain, boundaries, consequences, time. But love, nope, it does not. So, what can we do when our kid refuses help? You're sitting there. I remember at the beginning, wow, you are so helpless. It is the worst feeling in the world. It's like, okay, how do you move on with your life? Your kid's having all these issues. But no, he acts like he's not. Everything's falling apart. And how do you go on? How do you just continue on life and act like he's not there? But he's living in your house. So the torture is right in front of you and they haven't gotten help yet. And so you're in that in-between stage. It is definitely your most, challenging time probably that you will experience in your life. I think that's what makes us, after years of coping with this, much stronger. And you will see over the years, you will get stronger. But it takes a long time. And, I always say, if you can stay strong at the beginning, it doesn't mean you don't love them. You see, just because you don't do everything for them doesn't mean you don't love them. That is something you need to think about and keep saying to yourself, just because I don't do everything for him anymore doesn't mean I don't love him. Just keep saying it to yourself. Because the truth is that the further you get from them at the beginning and let them kind of settle into whatever they're experiencing, the faster they'll be able to get out of it and they'll get out of this rut and their dependence on you and your family members. And I never understood that. I felt like I'd be failing him if I did that and allowed him to just leave the house, go out on his own. How's he going to eat? How's he going to live? Where is he going to live? All these things that I was like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, no. But you know what? When you do that and throw them out into the world, they come back quicker that way. And that is what I've seen through experience. But you have to be really strong to be able to get to that point. And you really need to do it at the beginning and realize at the beginning, yes, you are going to get help. No, you are not telling me what you're going to do. I'm telling you what you're going to do. And really being able to stand your ground. That's, almost impossible. So what do we do when your child refuses help? Well, the only thing I could tell you is help yourself. You have to learn that you cannot do anything for addiction. You find support groups. You see a therapist who understands this journey, which is what I did. When I finally got to the person that helped me, I knew I got to her because I asked her. So if I get her, I'd say to her, if I get him into this session, if I get him into this rehab, does this mean everything's going to be okay? And she looked at me and said, no, it's not going to be okay. So I said, okay, wait a minute. So she said 90 some odd % at that time, people that go into rehab go back again a second, a third, a fourth, fifth time, many, many more times. And it's very rarely once. Maybe it's 1% maybe that only goes to rehab once. So that was discouraging, but it was honest. And then it's like this light went off in my head. Ooh, this is not going away. I can't fix this, and it's definitely not going to get fixed right now. How am I going to go on? How am I going to live my day? And I think that's what you have to have, honesty. Not what you want to hear, but what the truth is. And I didn't get that from anyone. And I think that they were just, back then they would say, okay, tell me about what's going on. And okay, see you next week after the hour. And there was no response. And it would like, you'd be leaving the session and you'd be like, okay, well, I just like talked the whole time, but I didn't get any advice and I don't really feel any better and I don't know what my next steps are. And I think that's what's really changed about therapy that has gotten so much better. And I think that's really something to consider. Maybe you need someone, some kind of counselor to just talk to someone that's been through this before, which is what I always say. A coach, the best coach can be someone that's experienced it, coach you through it, know how you feel, understand how you feel. And that's why I made sure that my therapist worked at a rehab center. And that's the kind of therapist I wanted, and that's what I went with. You're going to have to learn how to build strength. You are going to have to completely pick yourself up and figure out, your boundaries, what's going to be a punishment if those boundaries are broken for you and for them. And a great thing to say is, which is I love you. I'm here when you're ready, but I can't keep participating in the destruction. Let's repeat this again. I love you. I'm here when you're ready, but I can't keep participating in the destruction. And you know what? I remember saying this over and over again. And it went in one ear, out the other. And basically, it's just holding on. You're trying to hold on, and you're trying to not get in arguments with them at all. Do not get into those long discussions. You'll end up being their therapist, which is what I found myself doing. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then there were times when I started like walking out the door to like go somewhere with a friend, do something. And he'd be like, I can't believe you're leaving me. I can't believe you're leaving me when I'm like this. So it was like such a hold on me. He was so manipulative, and really his illness had taken over so badly. And I didn't have those boundaries well enough and secured enough. I wasn't strong enough. And the first time I had the boundaries that were strong enough, and when they are, when you're able to say, this is my house, these are my rules. I love you, and I want you to be with me, and I want to work with you on things that are going to help you get better. But if you don't want to live by my rules, and here are my rules, boom, boom, boom. I had a list. That's what I was told to do. The list of the rules. If you can't live by these rules, which you should write down on a piece of paper, because otherwise, if you're having this discussion, there's no way. You get frightened. You're like, you're tense as it is. You don't want to push them away, and you feel like you're pushing them away, which is common. So you're not pushing them away. You're doing them a favor. So you have that list, and you say, okay, well, if you're not going to live by these rules, there's only one thing left. You're going to have to leave. Now, when they told me he'd have to leave, they said, okay, he has to walk out. I was like, well, wait a minute, with nothing? With like what? What I should have done right then is cut off his phone, taken away the car keys, not let him walk out with his clothing. And basically, I, at the time, had called my ex, and he went to live with him. And that didn't work out. And of course, that all came back that it had nothing to do with anything. He was ill. Finally, my ex realized that and understood that there was a lot more to his illness. And these are the things you go through. Now, if your whole family is not on the same chapter and understanding that this is an illness and everyone has to agree to doing the same thing. We're going to stay strong. We're not going to cave in, or we're going to cave in. You have to make these decisions, and this is what makes it so hard. And there's nothing else to say, but At this point, if you're one of those people that cave in. My son used to call me up and cry. Oh my God, you know how much pizza means to me, and I haven't eaten anything, and oh my God, what am I going to do? And I promise you I won't ask you again, and I promise I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to do better Sure. Okay. When he stole things from me, okay. No. When they start stealing, you're in danger. 100%. So if you're already feeling like you're taking your purse and putting it in your room at night and locking your door, okay, you're already in trouble and something needs to be done. Now, if you're at the place where you see something's going on and he's not willing to agree to it, willing to say, I need help, then this is what I did at that moment. First, I made him go to therapy. Made him, literally. Like, I couldn't drag him, but I manipulated the situation and would say, okay, if you do not come with me to this session, then you cannot do the following. And it was something probably that he wanted to do or whatnot. So he went. He only went about 2-3 times. But you know what? The therapist told me afterwards, one of them, and back then I was like, oh, please, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He said, probably has bipolar. He has a lot of the symptoms. And I see how he's acting and the things he's saying and the way he's saying it and our conversations and the things he said and the patterns that have taken place. Well, I poo-pooed that off. Oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That's not it. He's doing drugs. He's seems to be depressed. And he was right. I didn't want to listen at that moment. I wasn't ready to listen. You might be there too. You might know, I didn't know anything about bipolar. I didn't know anything about such deep depression that to the point where, they can't even barely get out of bed. Everything is just feels heavy, very heavy, and they don't even know how to describe it. If they're not happy with who they are, then how are they going to go on to be productive in any way? Very hard for people to have really low self-esteem and be able to cope with people and things around them on any level of life. And most of all, when you're in a family and there are other siblings and they seem to be, to them, doing all the things that they wish they could do, it's very painful for them because they really feel like right in front of them, they see that they're different. They see that they can't be like their sibling. And for whatever reason that is, because again, they're not willing to get help or see it at that point. But it does get to a point where you have to save yourselves. You have to make sure your family's safe. And typically, if they're under the age of 18, like I said, they're still living at home probably. You have that window and you get them help. Getting a coach, if you can afford it, is a great thing. Someone close to their age, someone that, you could go to like a local rehab, you could go to find someone at IOP, intensive outpatient program. You could see if there's someone that's recovering. You could go to like an Al-Anon meeting and see if maybe you could find someone that's their kid is available, wants to make money, and can be there for your kid. Follow them around, so to speak. Be there when they're feeling down or how they're feeling. And that really can change someone. And if you can afford to do that, and unfortunately, I don't know why insurance doesn't cover it because they should, that is really what can help someone tremendously. Like literally having someone with the person, not the parent, not the siblings, nobody that knows them well, someone that's been through this before, that could tell them and share with them exactly what they know, how they're feeling because they've experienced it, and going with that. There's no cookie cutter for this. Not every story is the same. Not even one story is the same. And that's what makes this so difficult to solve. There's the puzzle. There are always pieces missing. Always. Because it will never be completely filled in. And that is the hardest thing to understand. And when you get to that place, you just go on with your life. And now I understand how people go on with their lives. You do. You go on with your life. It's all the time when I start thinking about it, that's when I start getting sad and crying. But then I feel guilty that I'm not thinking about it as much. But remember, I'm like 15 years in. That's a big deal. 14, 15 years into a situation like this, you've obviously grown over the years and things change. That's why I've seen so much. I've done so many things that I would have changed, but I've also done a lot of things that I wouldn't have changed, that I couldn't have changed, that never would have changed the outcome. Nothing would have changed the outcome. That's what you have to remember. All your help, all your babying, no matter what you want to do for them, nothing's going to help. You can't throw money at this. You can't throw love at it. You just can't. And that is why it's the most frustrating point when they won't get help and you feel like there's nothing you could do. Now, there is something you could do. You kick them out of your house. You give them ultimatums. And whatever happens, happens. Because it's no better in your home and you're not safe, most likely. And they're manipulative, so they'll be able to try to talk themselves out of it. They actually might be like, oh, fine. Maybe they'll try to go live with their drug dealer. Maybe they'll try to go live with a friend and act like you're the bad one and tell them they can't stand you and how bad it is living at the house with you and all these terrible things. And it might happen. But it has to happen. You have to find that ability to pick up the strengthen yourself and be able to get to that place. And so basically, they don't want help. You try to figure out something that will get them to go. Either, well, if you go once a week, then you will get to use the car twice a week. If you think about things that are important to them, and that would be something that you would probably want to focus on. Sometimes there's nothing. My son would be happy with a garbage bag next to him, owning nothing, having nothing. I don't understand that, but that's just what it is. And you think about people on the street, and I understand it more now than I ever have. So they don't want to get help. None of them do. Nobody does. They don't even know how to go about getting help. They can't even ask for it because they don't know how to. They often don't even realize that they have a problem. So it's like a really bad cycle. But again, maybe you'll be lucky. And I always used to say, I knew it. Once a week wasn't enough for 1 hour. He needed to be in therapy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for like a month. They don't have that. Where is that? Where's that program? If you're going to pay full way, no insurance, go out to Arizona somewhere, or and go on these they have these outbound trips, which I don't even know what those things are or what they're about or why. I know some people that sent their kids on them and nothing really changed. It changed for 2 seconds, but it's not an obedient thing. It's not behavioral, so to speak. It's mental illness. And that is why it is so difficult. And the thing is that you're sitting there feeling so frustrated. Your life has been taken over already by this situation, and you have someone in front of you that is not willing to cooperate. That's basically where you're at. And the only thing left to do is get yourself help, because if he won't see therapy, they won't see therapy, then you need to definitely see therapy. Let them walk you through it. Go to Al-Anon meetings. Go to one. Go outside your neighborhood, go to any kind of groups, that have, groups supporting parents coping with their kids' addiction, parents coping with dual diagnosis, anything like that. Look on chat groups. Today they have so much more than they ever did. I do believe, though, like I did go to a couple of Al-Anon meetings online, and I feel like being present, it's a different sense. It's just you get a different feeling by being there. And as a parent, we need that. You need that body language because it really is a big part of coping with your kids' addictions and mental illnesses. And being face to face with people is very different than being able to hide behind, a computer screen. And it strengthens you and it makes you stronger. And I don't think that it makes you stronger to be behind a screen. So that's why it gives you a safety net, but you don't need safety nets. You need to build your strength up. And the only way to do that is show yourself front and center. And that's why I really do believe you should go face to face. So I hope this helps. And listen to it a couple of times if you have to. And have a great day. Keep listening.
Thanks for tuning in. I trust this episode brought you insight and strength, offering valuable coping strategies. Stay connected with weekly content, plus follow if you enjoyed, and be sure to journal for your own self-care.